Hello and welcome to a very hot Al Zora golf course here out in Ajman in the UAE, where I have been having a fantastic day testing the new SM6 wedges from Titleist. We're actually the first people to get our hands on this other than the guys out on tour, and actually this week is DP World Championship week in Dubai. The players are sort of seeing these for the first time, and so are we. So we're really lucky to be given a first look at these wedges. And there's a couple of very interesting new pieces of technology that Titleist have brought into these wedges that should make them better than the previous generation SM5. And the key talking point is about centre of gravity. Now, when you think of a wedge, you don't think necessarily too much about the technology that goes into it. You think more about the craftsmanship, the finish, the grinds, the bounces, etc. But actually what Titleist have tried to do with these wedges is make sure that in the lower lofted versions, so from 46 through to 52, that the feel and performance characteristics of the wedge are more in line with your own set wedge. So when they looked at Titleist's SM5 wedge that they had, and they compared it with the AP2 set wedge in the Titleist range, they found that the centre of gravity were in two completely different places, which made the AP2 perform and feel, more importantly, feel very different to the SM5. What they've done with the SM6 wedges is to line those centre of gravities up in the lower lofted wedges. So I've got a 52-degree wedge in my hand here, and they've introduced a little, I don't know how to describe this really. It's a kind of grind in the back of the wedge that has brought the centre of gravity down lower in the back of the wedge. You have to see them. They look absolutely fantastic. This little line they've got here, I just think it helps that shelf appeal even more if they could. One other thing they've done in this wedge is to introduce a new micro groove that runs in between the main grooves. In this generation, it's squarer, and it's a little bit sharper than previous, so it should just generate a little bit more spin. They're saying 300 RPM more spin than in the previous generation wedges. And the last thing to talk about is that they've just simplified the grind story. So in previous generation SM5, there were a whole host of grinds, we all know that, and actually I went through the testing process and I thought they were absolutely fantastic. But when you're just a consumer looking at them from afar, kind of wondering which ones might be right for your game, they were quite tricky to get your head around exactly what might be right for you. You really did need to go through it with a fitter, and that still is the case today. I would still say you absolutely 100% need to get these customized for your game, but they're a little bit easier to understand. So in the 52 to 46 degree wedges, you just have one grind option, which is the F grind. Then as you work your way down into the more lofted wedges, that's where you get the more grind options, because frankly that's where you're hitting more of those sort of little versatile shots around the greens, the ones where you push your hands forward and check it in low, or the ones where you open the face up and flop it in really high. So you've got more options at that end of the bag, which makes sense. Okay, so you have the three different finishes as well in the wedge. You have the Tour Chrome, which you would expect. You have this jet black finish, which is a raw finish and will rust over time, which will change the look and the feel of the wedge. And then you also have this, which is a new finish called grey steel. Obviously, they all look fantastic on the shelves. If I was just choosing my wedge from shelf appeal, it would be the black one all day long. The problem for me is that when I put this down behind the ball, there's a 52 degree in particular, it feels a little harder to hit than say the Tour Chrome. That's why I tend to veer towards this. The grey steel one is a nice halfway house for those who are probably more confident ball strikers but maybe don't want to go into the black. They all look fantastic. You will need to sort of try them out. Don't immediately go for that one because it looks fantastic on the shelf. Think about how it looks behind the ball too. Now, as I say, we've had the chance to put these through a really thorough test. So I've hit all host of different shots here today. Probably explains why I'm looking a little bit hot and sweaty now, because I've had the chance to hit full pitch shots, little chip shots, bunker shots, everything around the greens to really put these through their paces. The golf course here actually isn't open yet, so we've had it to ourselves, a remarkable opportunity to test these. And you know, I'm not going to say a bad word about Vokey wedges. They're obviously going to be very good. Bob Vokey and the team at Titleist aren't going to put into the market a wedge that doesn't A, look right and doesn't perform right. But there are some key differences between this wedge and the previous generation. What they've done in those low lofted wedges is exactly the right thing to do, because in the previous generation Vokey wedges, that always sort of put me off the idea of, for instance, having a 48 degree Vokey wedge in the bag, just because to look down on it at address, I just didn't feel like I was going to get probably actually the overall distance I was going to need to make it work in with the rest of the clubs in my bag, the 9-iron and the set wedge, etc. I've been testing the 52, which is in my spec, and is the right distance for me, around about the 125, 130 mark. And it feels great, the performance is great. It's feels a little bit easier to hit. I know that sounds odd when you're talking about wedges, but in terms of the performance, I thought the lower lofted wedges were easier to hit. And then when you work into the higher lofted wedges, that's where I really noticed where the spin characteristics came in. That micro groove story. Obviously, anytime you put a brand spanking new wedge into play with completely clean grooves, they are going to spin like crazy, and of course they did. But what I did in my testing was to use both Pro V1s and also tested the new Titleist DT True Soft golf ball, which is obviously a non-premium golf ball, shouldn't spin as much, shouldn't be as soft a feel, and these were still spinning like crazy with everything I used, which is fantastic. It gives you that opportunity to be really aggressive in your short game. But most of all, I think the key point about these wedges is that they are designed to be customizable for you. What Titleist wants to do all the way through the bag is make sure that every golfer that that decides to shop with their brand, as it were, walks away with a set that's exactly right for them. And in the wedges, you now have so many loft, bounce and grind options that really there is no point in investing in new wedges if those wedges aren't exactly right for your game. And your PGA professional, and it has to be someone who knows what they're doing, will walk you through all the different grind options, all the different loft and bounce options, so that you have exactly what you need, not only for your technique, but also for the golf courses you play. And the Vokey wedges, that's exactly what they do. And so absolutely fantastic from Vokey and the team at Titleist. They continue to the heritage of the SM brand. SM6, a fantastic wedge, definitely one to try in 2016.